guys, it's Lindy.
And Mike, and this is TIY,
the Tiny It Yourself channel, and today we're going to talk about our subfloor and how we subsequently saved about 6 inches of headroom, which for some people, if you're tall,
super duper important.
Yeah.
Before we get started, if you did see our last video, you know that we tore down an old RV and rehabbed it into a tiny house trailer, but we want to mention that those old RVs have a pretty serious weight limit sometimes, like half of a full tiny house trailer, and we looked at that as a design challenge, as forcing us to build the whole thing lighter, which you will see more about in the future, but we want to make sure that you know that.
Yep, and another great aspect of it being so light is that it's also more efficient. So let's get into how we put the subfloor into our newly converted trailer.
So the very first thing that we did, which was a nightmare, was putting the aluminum flashing on the bottom to keep the bottom side protected, which involved me laying on the ground for hours drilling and then screwing this really awkward sheet metal into the metal frame, which was really hard.
Thanks. And because the trailer came with like these pre-existing metal beams that were not exactly evenly spaced, they were kind of wide, we decided to add some wood beams in between those gaps to make it a little bit more evenly spaced.
We also used some polyurethane metal roofing caulk to seal up those seams and make it watertight.
Now here's where we save the headroom, because most people, after they complete their trailer, they build their subfloor on top of that. Instead of doing that, we decided to insulate down into our trailer.
Yeah, a lot of people just throw those big, fat, heavy 2x6 beams and then sheathing underneath it as well, and then you lose a lot of headroom and end up really heavy.
Yeah, and we continued our process by adding some 2x4s as a border around the trailer, and we anchored them with some 1/4-inch bolts and some really fat washers.
Because the top of those 2x4s was at the top of the subfloor level, it allowed us to just use an 8-foot-long subfloor board and still go out to that full 8.5 feet by the time we're finished with everything, which was awesome, and we only used 6 boards for a 24-foot trailer instead of using like 9 or more.
This is apparently 6.
Sustainable.
Now this is where designing everything first can come in really handy, because if you're going to put your plumbing in, you need to know where it goes, and there are advantages with putting your plumbing into your subfloor. We'll get into those later. For us, we used 1.5-inch PVC for the drains and 1/2-inch PEX to run our lines.
And then one thing that we did, since we live in a really cold climate, and if we ever leave it and there's water in, the pipes could freeze and burst. At the lowest point in the line, we made a T that then shoots through the floor, and then we have a little ball valve that we can drain the system if we need to for the winter.
We then contacted a local spray foam company in our area, and for $300 they spray foamed our 8x24 trailer about 6 inches deep. After we were done spray foaming, we then added the electrical for our running lights, brake lights, etc., not to be confused with the electrical for our tiny house.
Now, as awesome as that spray foam is, we still wanted to nip that thermal bridge in the butt. Metal is really conductive, and so there would be some direct conductivity between underneath the trailer and right up into our floor. And so what we did is we created a thermal break with about a 1/2 inch of pink board.
So the pink board didn't get crushed by the weight of the OSB flooring. We added 1/2-inch blocks on top of the metal so that it had more even weight distribution.
We also actually laid our 1/2-inch PEX on top of that metal at the same level as the pink board. So what we did is we just cut out strips and we left a little bit of a barrier between the hot and the cold lines so we wouldn't get any thermal bridging there.
Yeah, that's a no-no. Unfortunately, the pink board does not like to lay flat, so in our very true fix-it ghetto fashion, we used duct tape to help everything kind of lay flat.
And then over that, we did a 6mm poly vapor barrier. That's just clear plastic that you can get in a lot of places.
Anyway, Walmart even, but don't support Walmart. For our actual subfloor, we just used a 3/4-inch OSB tongue and groove by the brand Sturd-i floor.
And then to anchor that OSB into the metal trailer, we drilled 7/64-inch holes, which were slightly smaller than the 1/8-inch thick screws, and that worked most of the time. Sometimes the screws snapped, but what can you do?
We then went around and marked where all the metal was lying under the OSB so that when we wanted to screw in things like cabinets later, we could easily find a stud. And this is what our completed subfloor looks like.
Amazing!
Ah!
Yeah, and I just wanted to note that these last couple videos have been about things we did in the past. They've been kind of retrospective because we weren't sure we were going to actually do a YouTube channel at that point. But our next video is going to be in the field showing you how to actually do it. It's going to be how to cut those metal studs, how to work with metal studs, step by step, and so we really hope you appreciate that. And in the description, we will have links to things like that aluminum sheeting we used. It can be really annoying when people just say, we use aluminum sheeting, and then you have no idea what it was. That took me so long to find, so we'll have that in there.
Yep. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video, and also check out our Instagram. We appreciate everyone who subscribed and commented thus far. Thanks,
so
guys.
much. All right, bye. See you next time.
I forgot what I was saying.
Here's where we save the headroom. Hit that full 8 and... Fuck!
We then counted...
Thank it.